Bonjour tout le monde. All right, so the concept that we're going to be talking about today or reviewing today is going to be irregular IR verbs, okay? So first, let's talk about regular IR verbs. Just to refresh your guys' memory, the quiz that we will be having will just be over the irregular ones, but just to make sure that we remember all of our irregular and regular IR verbs, we're going to talk about both of them first. All right, so for IR verbs, regular IR verbs, they follow a certain pattern. And you guys learned about this with Madame Leduc, so I have not taught you guys this concept yet. You learned about this previously, last year probably, towards the end, so you may or may not remember. But they all follow this sort of pattern together. So some examples of some regular IR verbs, excuse me, are choisir, finir, obéir, grossir, maigrir, and there are many others that follow this pattern, but these are just a couple examples just to jog your memory to help you guys remember. So choisir, you might remember, is to choose. Finir, to finish. Obéir, to obey. Grossir, to gain weight or to get fat. You have the adjective gros in there that you might remember way back from French 1. And maigrir is the opposite of grossir. So maigrir is to get skinny or to lose weight. Okay, so those are just some examples of some regular IR verbs. So let's go ahead and take, let's work with finir. All right, so for conjugating, just like most verbs, you're left with the infinitive, you take off the IR ending, and then you have to add some endings to it to get your different forms, je, tu, il, etc. All right, so for the je form, we have to add is to the end of it. So we're left with fin, F-I-N, when we take off the IR ending. And so to that stem, we add is. The tu and the je form look identical to one another. All right, so both of them have is at the end. Fini with an it at the end. So we have is, it. This might start to jog your memory. Madame Leduc taught you a fun little song that went with this. And I'm actually going to go ahead and erase those examples because they are in my way. And these ones get a little bit long. So we have is, it, that's short, sweet, easy. For these ones, issons, issez, and issent. So rather than just the regular ent, easy, ons ending that we're used to, we have also iss before it. And it's kind of like spelling the word Mississippi. You might get somewhere lost in the sauce with all the S's and I's and everything in these verbs. So try to keep everything straight. So we have is, it, issons, issez, issent, and I loosely sung the song that you guys learned previously with Madame Ledoux. All right, so this is just an example of how to conjugate regular IR verbs. All right, so now we're going to talk about some irregular verbs, and I'm actually going to keep that up. Let's go ahead and move us over a little bit. All right, so now we're going to talk about irregular verbs. And luckily, there were only 6 of them that we learn about in our book, and you guys might remember them. A lot of people remembered the irregular ones more than they remember the regular ones, so that's cool. So when it comes to irregular IR verbs, you might remember sortir, partir, dormir, sentir, oop, that's an extra I, servir, and courir. Can we see that one down there? Okay, good. All right, so like I said, 6. So all of these ones are irregular. Any other IR verbs besides these ones are regular verbs, okay? And that's gonna be important for one of the handouts that you guys are gonna do. All right, so for these irregular ones, they are irregular from the regular IR verbs, obviously. But the great thing is that we group them together like this because they follow their own pattern together. So these ones follow their own pattern, and these ones follow their own pattern together. All right, so let's go ahead and take the verb courir. All right, so for these ones, you are going to take off the IR ending, just like we're accustomed to, and add these endings that I'm writing on the board. So we have je cours, tu cours. Again, just like with regular IR verbs, the je and the tu form are exactly the same, but instead of adding is like we do with regular verbs, we're gonna just add an s, all right? With our il singular, we just have a t at the end. So instead of it, we have it with the regular IR verbs. We just have a t with the irregular IR verbs. And then for the nouveau and il, we're gonna have our regular endings that we're used to. ONS, easy, ENT, makes it a little bit easier. And I'm actually gonna try and bring this over so that you can maybe see just a little bit better for that one, okay? So SST, ONS, easy, ENT. So you can see how these ones differ from the regular IR verbs because the regular IR verbs have IS, ISIT, ISSONS, ISS easy, ISS ENT. So we have that extra super long ending for regular IR verbs, but for these ones, we only have SST and then ONS, easy, ENT that we're accustomed to already, okay? When it comes to a couple of these, and again, you'll have to look in your book. This was in chapter 5, so you might have to go flip through your online textbook. So I did say to take off the IR ending, and that's how you're gonna get your stem. But there are a couple that you take off more than the IR ending at the beginning. So for example, the verb dormir, which you might remember means to sleep. All right, so the verb is dormir. I'm gonna write it up here just to help you. So we're cutting off just a little bit more than our IR verb ending because you'll see that we don't even have the M in the je, tu, and il singular forms, okay? So we're actually cutting off the MIR. Just for these first ones, you'll see the M reappear in the second half. All right, so we take off the M for the je, tu, and il form, but we add the M back in, dormons, dormez, dorme. So we do pronounce the M in dorme. We do not pronounce these here. We don't say dort or doors. We don't pronounce the final word or final letter, sorry, but we do here in this one, dorme, all right? So that same thing where you have to cut off a little bit more goes for sortir, partir, sentir, and servir. So courir is the only one that you just take the IR off. The other ones you have to take a little bit more off for these first ones. So for servir, you might remember the verb to serve. It would be ser with an S, ser, again with an S, ser with a T, servons, so we add the V back in, servez, we add the V back in, and serve. So we do add the V back into that one and do pronounce that V on the il plural form. All right, so that is regular and irregular IR verbs, just a little review, and you'll need that for the first handout. Has a mix of irregular and regular IR verbs, so you're going to have to determine first whether the verb is an irregular or regular verb before you try to conjugate it. Okay, so you want to make sure that you conjugate them appropriately, and that's kind of what the quiz is going to look like. We're going to focus on the irregulars, but I am going to mix in a couple regular verbs in there just to make sure that you know both patterns and how to conjugate both groups of verbs. All right. One thing, you might also see the verb mentir on your handout, and that one is another irregular one. It wasn't in your book, but that means to lie, like to tell a lie. So if you see this one, it follows the same pattern: ment with an S, malt with an S, malt with a T, montant, monter, malt. All right, so just adding that right there at the end. And then the other handouts are dealing strictly with irregular IR verbs, so you guys should be really prepared for the quiz on Tuesday. All right, so remember, Monday is no school day, so don't come to school, or if you're a distance learner, there will be no school. We won't post anything on Monday, but Tuesday will be your guys' quiz, or Wednesday if you're an A-day student. All right, so everyone have a great weekend, and let me know if you have any questions or need any help with the exercises. Au revoir.